My phone buzzed 4 times before Lily even touched the ball. I was standing on the sideline of a Tuesday night soccer game, half watching my daughter jog into position, half watching a little red number climb in the corner of a screen I wasn't even supposed to be holding. Email, a group text about a fundraiser I'd already said yes to, a news alert about something I'd forget by morning. And somewhere in the middle of all that scrolling, Lily scored. Not a big goal, just a clean pass she'd been practicing in the driveway for a week. And I looked up half a second too late to actually see it happen. I saw the after, her arms already in the air.
That's the moment I want to start with, because I think it says more about this topic than any tidy definition could. I'm Sarah. I'm a psychologist, I'm a mother of 2, and somewhere in a past life I was a physicist who thought the universe made more sense in equations than in people. These days I sit in a small office in Portland with mismatched armchairs and a plant that somehow survived my track record, and I listen to people try to find their way back to themselves. If you're listening to this on a walk, or doing dishes, or lying in bed with a mind that won't quite land, welcome. This is Breathe and Begin.
Today's topic is quiet joy, not happiness, not gratitude journals, not the kind of peace people sell you in a candle. I want to talk about something smaller and, I think, much more honest. The particular difficulty of noticing your own life while it's happening in a world that is very, very loud. Here's the thing I want to say early, because I think it changes how you hear everything else. Most of us think quiet joy requires a quiet world. We think we need to escape the notifications, the noise, the traffic, the to-do list, before we're allowed to feel good about anything. So we wait. We tell ourselves, once things calm down, once the kids are older, once the inbox is empty, then I'll notice my life. And the world never calms down. It's not built to, so the noticing gets postponed indefinitely, and we call that postponement being busy, when really it's a kind of self-abandonment we've made socially acceptable. I don't say that to make you feel bad about your phone. Believe me, I am not the woman to lecture anyone about their phone. I say it because I think the real problem isn't the noise around us. It's that we've quietly decided noticing is a reward we haven't earned yet. So if you're someone who feels like joy is always one project away, one calm season away, stick with me. I don't think the answer is less noise. I think it's something else. Let's get into it. When people say the world is loud, they usually mean something specific, even if they don't say it out loud. They don't just mean sound. They mean the sensation of being pulled in 6 directions before 8 in the morning. They mean 40 tabs open, 3 group chats, a calendar that looks like a losing game of Tetris. But here's something I've noticed, both in my office and in my own kitchen. The loudest thing most of us are dealing with isn't actually external. It's internal. It's the running commentary. Did I say the wrong thing? Did I forget something? Am I behind? Is everyone else handling this better than me? That inner noise doesn't go away just because the room gets quiet. In fact, sometimes the room getting quiet is when it gets loudest, which is exactly why so many of us keep the outer noise turned up. It drowns out the inner one. So when we talk about finding quiet joy in a loud world, we're not really talking about volume. We're talking about attention, where it goes, what it's protecting us from, and whether we ever let it land on something good without immediately grading it, planning around it, or interrupting it to check a phone. I want to draw the distinction here, because I think it's the whole episode, honestly. Silence is the absence of sound. Stillness is the presence of attention. You can have complete silence and feel none of the stillness. I promise you, an empty house at 11 at night with your mind racing is one of the loudest experiences a person can have. And you can be standing in a genuinely chaotic place, a crowded kitchen, a kid's birthday party, a subway platform, and catch 2 full seconds of real stillness, because for a moment your attention actually landed somewhere instead of skittering across the surface of everything. This matters because a lot of people spend years chasing silence, the retreat, the vacation, the empty house, as a stand-in for stillness, and then they get the silence and it doesn't deliver what they were hoping for. Not because silence is fake, because silence was never the actual ingredient. Attention was. I had a client a while back, I'll call him Daniel, though that's not his name, and some details are changed, who worked in finance, drove a long commute, and told me in our first session that he didn't understand why he felt so flat all the time. Good job, nice family. Nothing was wrong. A few weeks in, almost as an aside, he mentioned he never drove in silence. Podcast, call, music, doesn't matter. Something had to be filling the car. I asked what happened if he turned it off. He laughed a little too fast and said, "Nothing happens. I just don't do it." So I asked him to try it. 10 minutes. No sound, just the drive. He came back the next week a little rattled. He said the first few minutes were fine, and then somewhere around minute 6, this thought arrived, almost out of nowhere. I don't actually know if I like my life, or if I've just gotten good at staying ahead of finding out. That's not a dramatic story. Nobody collapsed, nothing broke, but that's usually how it goes. A loud world isn't always hiding heartbreak underneath it. Sometimes it's hiding a much quieter, more ordinary question, one we've simply never given 10 uninterrupted minutes to ask. Here's something worth knowing, in plain terms, no jargon. For a lot of people, especially people who grew up needing to stay alert, to a parent's mood, to instability, to being the responsible one, quiet doesn't register as safe. It registers as suspicious. The nervous system learned a long time ago that if things get too still, that's often when something goes wrong. So even as adults with none of that danger left, some part of us keeps the noise on as a kind of insurance. Busy feels like control. Quiet feels like exposure. I say this because if you've ever felt an actual flicker of anxiety the moment things get too calm, if a slow Sunday makes you itchy rather than restful, that's not a character flaw. That's a very old, very reasonable adaptation doing its job a little too well in a life that no longer needs it. You're not broken for finding quiet uncomfortable. You're just carrying an old alarm system into a house that isn't on fire anymore. I think almost everyone I've ever worked with has somewhere in them a version of this sentence. I'll really live once things settle down. Once the kids are in school. Once the promotion comes through. Once the house is done, the debt is paid, the diagnosis is behind us. There's always a once. And look, some seasons genuinely are harder than others. And I'm not telling you to feel grateful in the middle of a crisis. That's not what this is. What I'm questioning is the belief that joy is something waiting for you on the other side of a finish line that keeps moving. Because it does keep moving. That's the nature of a life. There is no season with zero noise in it. If quiet joy requires a noiseless life, none of us ever get it. So the real question isn't how do I make my life quieter? It's, can I let something small register as good, right now, inside the noise that's already here? People often talk about joy like it's a feeling that either shows up or doesn't, like weather. But I've come to think of quiet joy less as a mood and more as a muscle, a small, unglamorous, repeatable act. Noticing. Not noticing in the performative, gratitude list, 10 things I'm thankful for way. Nothing wrong with that practice, but it can become its own kind of noise, another task to complete correctly. I mean something smaller. The coffee is actually good this morning. That was actually a nice 10 minutes with your kid, even though it was surrounded on both sides by chaos. Your friend said something on the phone that actually made you laugh, and you let the laugh be the whole event, instead of already composing your reply. That's it. That's most of the practice. It's not more time. It's less interruption of the time you already have. A while back, Lily and I were in the car. Nowhere dramatic, just a normal drive home. And she said, out of nowhere, "You always say, 'hang on,' right when something's happening." I asked what she meant. She said when she tells me something exciting, I usually say, "Hang on first. Hang on, let me finish this email. Hang on, let me park." And by the time I actually look at her, she's already moved on to the next thing, and the excited part is gone. She wasn't upset when she said it. That's almost worse. She said it like a simple fact she'd just gotten used to. And I remember thinking, that's the whole episode right there, in one sentence from a 9-year-old. The world doesn't usually take joy away from us in dramatic ways. It just asks us to say, "Hang on one more time, and one more time," until the moment's already over by the time we arrive. I think we've been sold a version of joy that's loud on purpose. Big trips, big wins, big transformations, the kind of thing you'd post about. And there's nothing wrong with big moments. But if that's the only thing we're willing to count, we end up dismissing almost everything else our lives are actually made of. Quiet joy is smaller by design. It's the particular quality of light in your kitchen at 6 in the evening. It's a dog leaning its full weight against your leg for no reason. It's your own thoughts, once, going quiet for 4 whole seconds while you watch your kid attempt something they're bad at and clearly love. None of that is Instagrammable. All of it is real. And I'd argue it's more sustainable than the big stuff, because you don't need a vacation to access it. You need about 4% more attention than you're currently spending. If there's one thing I'd ask you to actually try this week, it's this. Not silence, not a retreat, not deleting your apps in a fit of resolve you won't keep. Just staying, for slightly longer than feels natural, in the middle of one good, small, ordinary moment. When your kid is telling you something, when the song you like comes on, when someone says something kind about you, and your instinct is to deflect it immediately. Just stay 1 extra second before you move on. That's the old practice. It's not impressive. It doesn't require a retreat in the mountains. It just requires you to notice that you were about to leave and choose, on purpose, to stay a little longer than the noise wants you to. I think about that soccer game sometimes. I didn't get the goal back. That moment's gone. Lily's arms already up, me looking up a half second too late. I'm not telling you I've solved this. I still check my phone at games. I still say hang on more than I'd like to admit. But here's what's different now. I notice it faster. I catch myself mid-scroll and think, this is happening right now. And I put the phone down, not because I've become some serene, notification-free version of myself, but because I've gotten a little better at recognizing the moment I'm about to trade something real for something loud. That's the whole reframe, really. Quiet joy was never about making the world quieter. It's about getting quicker at noticing when something good is standing right in front of you and choosing to actually be there for it, noise and all. If any part of this found you tonight, on a walk, in the car, in a kitchen with your hands in the dishwater, I'm glad you were here. If it helped even a little, staying subscribed means these conversations keep finding people who need them, and I'd be grateful for that. Until next time, stay a second longer than feels natural. That's the whole practice.